took the test, but the parents weren't told it was happening. Three factors that I look at. We're focusing on the first, but I look at these three because they're all contributing factors. The folks, this one's on how parents can do something to help, and I have a booklet that I produced. Now I have a book that covers all three areas, and it's heavily sourced. It's like 400 sources in it. But I also have a very short booklet and a CD and a DVD that relate to simple things parents can do. So what can parents do? Well, early experiences are really important. The educational research suggests that the number one predictor of long-term success in school is that level of reading that's ready as the children arrive. And largely due to parental practice, boys now are often as much as 6 months behind. Now, it wasn't like that 30 years ago. I can say because I was there. I wasn't a little boy 30 years ago. I wasn't even a young man 30 years ago. So the reality is that gap is expanding. Now, there are a lot of reasons why that's happening. Okay, there are a lot of societal reasons. One reason it's happening, of course, is that we're having a lot more family breakup, and we have a lot of boys who don't have male role models. And that's important for little boys because it's a question of gender identity. If I see reading as something girls do, in all probability it's not for boys. If I see something as reading something men do, this is something us guys do. So and I know I just simplified that, but it's very, very compelling research around that. Now, the school system, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to get into it, but it's not very good at helping boys close that gap. Okay, now, this is another topic for the day, but the school's not very good at helping boys close that gap. And so, very often, boys fail to be engaged not only with reading, but just in schooling in general. And we have, and as I said, we now have 70% more boys in the last 10 years who have said they'll never step foot in a classroom. Now, in a knowledge society, a knowledge-based society, that's dead. So, small changes that parents can make, that'll make a difference. And help your sons to become achievers. So you modify your child's reading practices a little bit. I'm not telling people how to be parents, so don't mistake that. But one of the things that the research shows that if we speak face to face with our babies, believe it or not, it makes a difference because what we now understand is that children learn language in a holistic manner. They watch your face while you're speaking. Now, interesting enough, because boys very often are more fidgety, we end up not looking at in the face. Read to children and listen to read. We aren't talking back to what's hit, but read to children, listen to read, let them see you reading, and give children their own books even before they can read. And that's the principle of the teddy bear. This is my book. I can't read this. I can't read this book. That's my book. Well, see, now I have an affinity for books. And you know what? I like books. They give me a good, comfortable feeling. Because, see, I go see mom or dad, and mom or dad figure out how to read this book. And usually I have Pavlovian approach. Now, when I touch the book, it's just like dad touching me. It's like mom giving me a hug. And that comes from the book. Now, I'm not making this up. This isn't just a ground stereo. I mean, the research is showing this clearly. Now, most books produced for little children are female-oriented because we buy 10 times as many books for girls as we do boys. So the publishers produce books for girls. I mean, what kind of an idiot is going to produce that size of market when there's that size? So if you go to a store, and you can tell me I'm wrong, but Francis and I have been into many, many, many bookstores. And it's very, very hard to find books for little boys. Very, very hard. And so tend to have specific characteristics. Incidentally, this doesn't just apply to little boys. It applies all the way up the line. And so you get, if you're sitting here and you go studying grade 4, you have a tough time finding books that are really good for little boys.
I have to say, sorry. In grade 11, my son was in grade 11 last year, my older boy. They have a book club, a reading club at their school. And we look through the yearbooks of all the girls in the reading club. So checking the announcements every day at the school, they'll post what the books are for the reading club that month. Pride and Prejudice. I sent a note to the principal. It's like I have a daughter. She loves that, but my boy will not read that. And I found with grade 9 was cut off for him reading. And I suggested, maybe you want to start a book club for girls because it's like I said, look in your yearbook, it's all girls.
Yeah.
And I was dismissed. I didn't get a reply. But and then boys don't read those books.
But if I'm the English teacher, I'm a former, I taught kindergarten at one point, but I've also taught,
Yes.
I've also taught end of secondary school, and I've taught at university, and I've taught postgraduate. I've been right the extent. But the point is, if I was a secondary school head of English, I would be picking books that appealed to me, and I was the boy. And I have to stop and say, whoops, wait a minute, maybe I better pick some here that might be of interest to girls. And most English teachers in North America and in UK, most of them, not all, but most of them, are women. And I'm not saying that's bad. It just means they tend to choose books that would have been of interest to them. And they don't understand, the same as I wouldn't understand, how could you possibly not fall in love with this book?
Well, I found subsequent that the club actually votes for the books. But it's the yearbook shows it's all girls, one boy, and all through high school, one boy in the book club.
And good that he was that brave.
Yeah.
Because very often you're the only one there and you think, no, don't think so. This isn't for boys. Okay, books that have a male as a central character. Books that boys can they actually own even if they can't read them. Yeah. Books that have action, adventure, or problem solving by boys. Books that portray the central character model behaviors that they want. And particularly for little children, books where the vocabulary is such that the parent can read the book to the child, and as the child learns to read, the child can read them themselves. And that's very often in terms of children's books. That's books that print on one page and a picture on the facing page, because that's the whole language approach. That I have some of the words, but I can tell the story from the picture, and so I can kind of take the rest of the words. And now I'm into early reading, and hence I feel good about myself because I can read this, even though a lot of it's invented. It's all inventive reading. I invent the story based on the picture. So that's a book that we had produced. It was the author's actually a cousin one, and this one looks at these three boys and Johnson brothers, and so it's male characters and the little scamp at the bottom there. He's your stereotypical active boy. He's probably the main character in this particular story, and he doesn't become any less impish, but he does problem solving and so on. So that's one that we have and we have a whole new line coming that's out now, The Adventures of Jack and Gizmo. And again, Jack's his character, and Gizmo is his faithful sidekick to Pat. That's Francis and I have written this one, and we have 3 more coming out. The illustrator has them at the moment. Otherwise, I would have brought them with us. But the illustrator is doing the work on them right now, and these are largely based on the exploits of our cats. See, there's another one. This has a black boy as the central character, and then. But there are 3 things parents can do regularly, and this applies at any age. And this research out of Simon Fraser, gives you an idea of the tremendous difference this makes. They're looking at 30% gains for kids with parents doing this. This takes all of 3 to 5 minutes a day to do. Have this daily conversation with your child about events at school, and it's as simple as, what did you learn at school today that's of any value? Now, wait. The first answer is always the same. No, that's right. But you have to be persistent, and you have to stay with it. So I worked with kids who were 14 years old when I got them, who were total truants, school phobic, and they couldn't read the 5 most common words in the English language. And so every morning they came to me, and we sat down and we wrote up what we were going to do that day and so on. And at the end of the day, they had to come back to me, and they had to tell us something, like before they could leave. They had to tell us something they learned that day that was of value. I put that on the whiteboard, and everybody copied this down in their notebook. But those children did that consistently, day after day after day. Now, they still stay in touch with me by email. One's a university graduate, several are college graduates, one's a mechanic, another's a cook, and they're all literate. And these were all people who at 14 years of age couldn't read the first 5 common words in English. But we stayed with this. We said, no, we're going to do this. We're going to learn new words every day. We're going to do word searches, and we're going to learn to read the sports section of the newspaper and whatever. Most people like. Okay, parents can do that, and it only takes 3 to 5 minutes. It's not like you're saying, okay, I'm going to have to beat my kid up for the next 45 minutes. No, it only takes a few minutes to do it. Set and clarify expectations. Again, that's what I was doing with these kids in the morning. Okay, what are our expectations for the day? Well, we couldn't spend all day setting up those expectations. They had to be done in a few minutes. And then, of course, if you model behavior, and that is if you want the children to read, well, you read too. And I talked to a number of eminent educators, and they spend 20 minutes, half an hour before the children go to bed. And everybody reads, the whole family, just for a few minutes. Just for a few minutes. We're not talking about a painful experience. And it could be something as simple as reading the newspaper. The fact that you're reading indicates that reading has value. And as I say, the research out of Simon Fraser shows the kids make as much as a 30% gain in this. Now, another biggie is sharing your personal knowledge about your child with, and I say this because it's boys I'm running, with his teachers. See, when we go to parent-teacher, quotes, interviews, mistake. Sorry, you come to my classroom, this is not an interview. This is a conference. I ask you to recognize my expertise as a teacher and respect me for that. But you know what? There's nobody who knows as much about your child as you. So I respect your expertise as a parent. And now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to have a conference about how can we help your child succeed. Not let's have a sit down so I can tell you all the things that he's done wrong. Mm-hmm. And you know what else he did? And you know what else he did? Like, okay, think parents have a point. And you know what else? And you know what else? That's not helpful. That's not helpful. But it is helpful where, I mean, as a parent, you just come in and say, this is not an interview, this is a conference. I'll recognize your experience and expertise as a teacher. Please recognize mine as a parent. That's it. And Francis would tell you, when's the best time of the year to have your parent-teacher conference?
Right at the beginning.
Before school even starts. Because, you know, it's not going to do much good 3 months from now for you to find out about my son. Yeah, like, here are some things you need to know about my son. Well, after the fact, the teacher, in fairness, the teacher's saying, well, if I'd known that, I'd have done things differently. So we need to tell them that right at the beginning. When Francis was the school principal, first thing, beginning of the year, have the same high expectations for your sons as your daughters. And the reality is, the school discourages you in terms of how your son's doing. And you have to fight fact of the matter is, the school discourages it, and it goes back to what I'm saying about, because your son may not behave the way a girl does in class, it's possible that the teacher sees that child as less capable. And if you take that on as a parent, the next thing you know, parents are saying that. So what we found now is that the research shows that when you ask parents, the common experience is to have much higher expectations that their daughter will go to post-secondary school than they have to do science. And of course you convey that to your children. You don't have to say it to them. You certainly convey it to them. Ensure that the school applies gender equity in hiring practices. I mean, we need to have more men teachers in school, not only because of role models, but because of the whole issue of gender identification. I don't tend to engage in a book club that's all girls, because I say that's a girl's activity. I don't tend to engage in it. I tend to think, okay, what are the guys doing? I'm going to go and do that. I might add, I have an older sister, and my older sister will proudly tell you, yeah, there are people older than me. My older sister will proudly tell you that she was a tomboy. I'm not going to proudly tell you that I was a girly boy. I didn't do it, but I'm not going to tell you that. See, because it was perfectly acceptable for her to be a tomboy. It certainly was not perfectly acceptable, and it still isn't actually, for me to convince I was a girly boy. Whether that's good or bad, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. If that's how it's perceived, if that's how my world of boys is going to perceive it, that's not the game I'm going to play. We have to be insistent that different types of knowledge, styles of learning, methods of demonstrating that are treated equally. See, when a child comes in who has weak English skills, and you ask that child to write a science test that's all dependent on reading and writing, you're not testing science anymore. You're testing reading and writing. So the child may say, I can tell you about this. No, you have to write it down. Yeah, but I can't spell. Well, that's too bad. You have to write it. Pretty sorry to tell you, I would read about brain. Yeah, but I know all this stuff. Too bad. So I think we have to be insistent. We have to be insistent that, and my other favorite is, if all knowledge in the world on that wall, which little speck would I know? Would be the same as yours. Certainly would be the same as Francis. That's what you get.
Don't know that again.
I don't. It's a different set of knowledge. So, are we going to say that this is the only set of knowledge? I mean, I was over working with kids, and they were reading of Mice and Men, and I'm supposed to help them people with it. I'd never read it. Now, of course, since I'd never read it, that meant that they were doing this to complete the GCSE. I started thinking maybe I should nail my diploma back in Ministry of Education, because I couldn't ask them of Mice and Men. I'd never read it. So clearly, I wasn't educated. Because they couldn't graduate without having read Mice. So I had to read Mice and Men in order to be educated.
Well, don't you think the high schools have gone away from industrial arts programs like that?
Of course, but all of that, all of the whole idea of practical learning as being inferior to theoretical learning. Well, you know what? I like to think of myself as a Renaissance man. Hard to believe that it might be I'm a musician. Hard to, and actually pretty good at it. And hard to believe as it may be, I was the son part of a father and son building enterprise. I know, with both hands, hard to believe. But the reality is that's part of our all around. You need to be not only academically literate, you need to be technically literate.
Socially.
That's a biggie too. But I'm saying, we have children in school. We have children. I have a son who teaches at York University. If you hand him a screwdriver holding a nail, he doesn't know which end to hold. And his father's a builder. Like, the shame of it. My excuse is I have an older son and he's the opposite. My excuse, I'm Okay, this has all been based on the book that I have called Rescuing Underachieving Sons. And that's what it looks like. Now, you can get a book from me if you want, or you can get it from Francis. And but they're also available on any of those sites. I mean, you can order it at the bookstore. The bookstores won't carry it, but you can order it, or you can order it online. Any online provider. You know, it's also based on a booklet because there are 3 booklets. The book deals with 3 areas of interest. One is parents, the other is schools, and the other is society. So it's this particular presentation is based on how parents can help their sons become achievers. That's what that looks like. If you can either get them here or you get them from me. There are 2 other booklets in this series. One is on the education system, and the other is on society of war on boys, and that's not meant in a terribly pejorative sense, but it's the whole idea that unintentionally we are doing a number of things to boys that are really harmful. Now, I'll give you a simple example of this. I am a cancer survivor. Okay, this is a very sensitive issue. I'm a cancer survivor, and I had prostate cancer. It was supposed to kill me. I'm not supposed to be here. So anyway, I am for whatever reason to penalize poor Francis. But besides that, I'm here. Okay. Watch the Saskatchewan July. They will have their uniforms decked out in pink for a couple of weeks. Okay. Blacks are 30% more likely to get prostate cancer than whites. Half that team is black. Prostate cancer affects more men than breast cancer does women. And prostate cancer kills more men than breast cancer kills women. And the black are more likely again, but they will not have a prostate cancer. And that's part of society's war on males in general. And I can raise the issue because I'm still here to raise it. But the reality is, I went on the cancer walk on Father's Day, and it was held out in a park in the middle of nowhere. But the breast cancer walk, they closed the streets for. So the 3rd book looks at these kinds of issues, and we can go down the issues about how the court system functions and which are all in the book, all in that book.
I also am a prostate cancer survivor.
I suspected you might have.
That's changing. That whole imbalance is a very rapidly changing, thank goodness. So just for
With the
people.
Rough Riders coach, Ken Miller,
Yeah.
Yeah.
was a survivor. He had these players in.
Well, the reason I raise the issue is I watch this on television,
That's right.
and you
You're
see
right.
it, and it's there, and the guys on doing the broadcast are talking about it, the pink campaign and so on. I'm sitting there saying, yeah, but what about us guys that are hanging by a thread here? You know, like what about us?
Yeah.
And I read the research. Obviously, I'm a researcher. I read the research, and the research always ends the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any definitive conclusions, and frankly, we run around. So anyway, that's it, folks. And hopefully, I didn't take too long. I tried to keep the time down. And do you want to ask any questions or make any comments that are more offending?
In a household, specifically talking about my grandson,
Yeah.
where the dad is not as much engaged as the mom, where I don't think he puts the emphasis on education or the emphasis on anything as much as the mom does. That must be a factor, as well as,
It is.
because I know that those boys were read to by the mom, and us.
Yeah.
But
It is.
one of them is an achiever, the other is not.
But the purpose of this little presentation here was to raise awareness.
Yeah.
And you've got some materials now, and I think you need to say a few words. Not a lot, but you need to say, did you know? Because something as simple as that has to be about the school.
Not the mom asking you.
No, just the dad asking. Yeah, just something as simple as the dad saying, you know, how about we spend 10 minutes? 10 minutes of reading. Me and you. All spend out for 10 minutes. Time out. Television talk, we're going to read it. Longer than 10 minutes for something that they spend years on. But the point is, but you have the information, you have it in DVD form. This presentation is going to be in DVD form, the slides from the DVDs. I didn't tell you that first because you might have taken that. But it's in DVD form, it has the slides and it has me speaking. So that's available. The booklets are available, there are CDs available to play in car if you don't want to be bothered reading it. All those stuff's on CD. And then copies of my book. But I would bring that to the attention. I mean, even if it's something simple, when your son logs in the car, you put that CD in the CD player. And then he's captive audience.
He's an avid reader himself.
But he needs to do it in front of the children. And because it needs to be, this is something us guys do. Because if it's something you girls do,
Yeah.
I may or may not engage. But if it's something that us guys do,
Yeah.
then me wanting to be part of the boys' fraternity, whether I admit it or not, then it'll be something I do too. And I hope Brian, I hope you're right about the big changes there in that, because I haven't seen.
Yeah. No, it's definitely happening.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a lot of us making an effort on it.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. I hope that you will. There are real bargains on these materials. We sell them at what it costs us to produce them, and by that I mean what we pay, not the effort we put in. So if you're interested at all, I hope you. Thanks a lot.
Schools and administrations is that something that you're being welcomed or people are ignoring you?
No, well, this presentation was specific for parents, but
Right.
it is very, very, very
Most
difficult.
parents don't even see it.
No.
It's oblivious.
Yeah.
But go to the academic awards at high school.
Yes.
Girl after girl after girl.
Well, and I was a school board director. As a
Right.
school board director, I would go to graduation ceremonies and every award they gave to the girl. And I thought, okay, that's possible. Except, would I not?
Oh.
If I showed up, 50% of the school was black and 50% was white, and only white kids were getting awards.
This is Jim's
Well,
Would anybody tolerate
Yeah,
that?
there would be protests on the
Of
streets.
course.
There was just boys getting, the women would go
Of course.
protest.
Yeah, of course. And so,
Well,
but there is no evidence, and this is the underachieving, there's no evidence that those girls winning the awards are more capable.
when you have
I'm not arguing that this may be achieving. However, I will tell you how the study happened. They did a study at Queen's University. Okay, I used to work at Queen's. Study at Queen's University. They did it in the U.S. They did it in the UK. They gave children, they gave teachers the paper. Same paper, that had a girl's name on it, consistently rated higher than it had a boy's name. Consistently. It wasn't anybody they knew that had a girl's name on it, consistently rated higher. And that was done in 300. The same one. And, but most people don't know about that. Of course, when I say it, people will tell me, go ahead. You can get it from Queen.
Talk about problems and if we're gonna improve things, but I don't see it improving, like I honestly don't, and they won't even admit.
No,
There's a problem.
I was
But they
interviewed.
took the recess time away on board.
I was interviewed. I've been interviewed for a dozen newspapers in the accusing anybody of anything, just saying this is, boys aren't doing as well as girls. So the reporter contacted the two school systems, the secondary system and the Catholic, both. And they both said exactly the same thing.
The graph showing
The
just that.
boys are not having a problem. Wait, they're not having a problem, and they need every child.
You know, research you're going on.
Okay, the reporter printed that, whole page there, and then in the sidebar,
Yeah, with the,
testing results.
and if you think about it, it does make sense, because if you're
So that day
the older,
nobody from those school systems would reply to
the
me.
like search goes on, doesn't it?
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't write it.
Yeah.
They were the fools, sorry,
Yeah.
fools that said it, it wasn't me that said it. But they made such fools of themselves.
Yeah.
It's better. A year later, a different reporter re-interviewed me,
And how much of it?
because by now we were moving into other areas. Phoned the school system, no reply. She hounded them and hounded them. They finally had to give in because if they didn't, they get that press for refusing to talk with them. And they said exactly the same. And she did the same thing. She printed what they said and the results. I know, but that's like now I have to guard my car, but my tires don't get
Yeah, no, I've seen some wonderful teachers like her.
Oh, no, I know.
Elementary school, it's just tremendous. And
I'm not arguing that.
Oftentimes,
Well, no, but-
I just, that's been my
Well, I'm not-
experience, very, but,
See,
yeah.
when I was a director, we were instructed by the provincial government, we didn't have enough women principals.
Yeah.
So, we only hired women principals. Okay, then I was hired to work on the oral examinations for supervisor officer positions, to be superintendent director. And we were told if the candidate is a woman, automatically passes. And if the candidate's a man, who only passes if you're extending to support. We increased the pool for women, so now when I'm hearing just about everybody in senior position is woman. And if you raise the issue, they say, oh, no, they got there because of mobility. And I think, so I was there. Wait a minute, I was there. I was part of it.
Well, I've had good success, I'm so angry, but
No.
I've had good success, like my boy going to Sioux Falls for
Right.
engineering.
Good.
And, they're just doing really well, but, as you have that, if you're not
And that's,
advocating,
and that's the word you have to be the advocate
yeah,
for yourself.
and just some beautiful teachers, but every once in a while, it just doesn't get it. And it's there, like just the example of the grade 4 workshops for girls, it's just so plain.
And they don't see it.
And obviously did not
No.
see it, the teacher was totally confused,
Yeah.
I would be concerned about that. So you're doing good work, which instrument do you play?